welcome everyone. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to Awesome Careers podcast. My name is Eva Lee. I'm your host, and I'm a Gallup Certified Strengths Coach and Career Coach, where I dedicate this podcast to sharing about different careers. And tonight I have with me is Chef Yia Vang, who's going to share about his experiences and how he became a chef. So I hope everyone is able to join us, whether you are watching live with us or catching us on the replay. If you're here with us live, let us know again, where are you streaming from or where are you watching from? I know the weather's been kind of funky. What's the weather like for you? Feel free to put that in chat. If folks are tuning in and you have questions for a chef, feel free to put them in chat. Hopefully we'll be able to answer some of your questions that you have at the end. Without further ado, I'm going to quickly talk and highlight really quick Chef Yai Vang's experience really quick for folks who, again, are whether you're catching us live or on the replay. So trained chef Yia Vang has worked at many top restaurants in the Twin Cities before starting the Union Hmong Kitchen, and has been featured in New York Times, National Geographic, as well as Bon Appetit, as well as Nat Geographic and Bon Appetit, as well as showcased on PBS, CNN, and more. His new restaurant concept, Vinai, which is named after the refugee camp in Thailand where he was born, is to create a home for his Hmong food that celebrate his parents' legacy and tells his family's story through food. Vinai is also slated to open this year in summer 2021 in Minneapolis. So without further ado, let's welcome our good friend here, Chef Yia Vang. Hi, Yia. How are you doing?
Hey, bud. Good. And you don't have to call me chef. Just call me Yia. Don't worry about the whole chef thing.
I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no
and
problem.
I'm so glad that you're able to join us today. Thank you. I know that we're in different time zones. So again, I appreciate so much of your time and energy to come join us for an hour to share us about your journey and experiences. So thank you so much. And I know that I think right now in Minnesota, you're all experiencing a little bit of a weather storm and bunkering down a little bit more because of the storm. Is that right?
Today was just all rain, and then later on it was thunderstorm. But the last few days been beautiful, which is like it's been in like the high 50s, even the high 60s here. So for us here in Minnesota, anywhere above 40, we're wearing shorts and t-shirts. I'm wearing shorts and t-shirts. So
I think that would be freezing because I'm in California. So California,
I know.
Like when you're telling 40 and 60s, I'm like, what? That's freezing.
Oh no, I was in sandals the other day. Yeah, walking around.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that you're safe and you're warm and you're comfortable. Yeah. Wonderful. And it looks like we have folks coming. So I was watching from Fresno. Awesome. And Bal's here with us as well. Thank you so much, Bal, for joining us. Okay. We're going to jump right to it. And again, I know an hour sounds like a long time, but it goes by so fast. And I want to make sure we drive right into those really good questions regarding, this career path. I think many people have heard about, we watch it on TV, and we have no idea what does it take to become a chef. So before we go into what does it take, I'm curious, again, sharing with us a little bit more about how did you become interested in this field? How did you know that you were going to be a chef one day?
Yeah, I think that a lot of especially so when I got involved and started cooking, it wasn't the cool thing to do. Like it wasn't like now it's like everything, like everyone wants to do it because it's like, oh, you're going to be on YouTube, you're going to be on TV, blah, blah, blah. But when I started, it wasn't like that at all. So I actually tell people I never wanted to do this for a couple of reasons. One, I knew that the work was going to be hard. My dad and my mom, they didn't want me to have this kind of life because it's a hard life, And when I say that, I mean it in a respectful way. It wasn't like they were against me, but they were just like, we want you to, have an easier life. This is not what, working all the time, working hard like that. And then the other thing too was I just never thought I was a good cook. I still don't think I'm that good. I think that when I got into restaurants and started cooking on the line, and when you cook on the line, it's like you got to just be quick and you have to know how to work the system a little bit. And I thought I was pretty decent at that, So I tell people that me and restaurant world or the restaurant cooking world, I just tell people that it's like that girlfriend that you keep breaking up with, but then every year you like every few months you get back together with, and you break up with her and you get back together. And then 15, 16 years later, you're just like, might as well put a ring on it. We know each other pretty well. So that's how I feel about the cooking world. But now it's different now, though. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit, what age did you determine you were going to become a chef?
I honestly never like, so when I started cooking, it was right high school and college. I mean, I knew that it was like a job that I could do. And it's like, it was like I call it my plan D job. You know, if plan A didn't work, plan B didn't work, all the way you gotta get like plan D, plan E. Like that's where I knew it was. It's like if all else failed and I failed out of school, or if I couldn't find a job, I can always find a job as a cook. I mean, I never like said, "Oh, this is really what I wanted to do." I mean, I think I was decent at it. The whole like when I was growing up, you know, like and so I knew how to use a knife. I know how to cook butcher, you know, do butchery. I know how to do, you know, growing up, just kind of watching my dad king guy and stuff like that. Like I knew how to do that, and then the chefs I worked for just liked me because they're like, hey, like you don't show up high or hungover, or like a lot of the guys I work with, they live pretty hard lives. So it'd be like some nights they'll be like, oh, they'll call in and go, hey chef, I'm in jail. Like I need to be bailed out, you know? And so some of these are the guys I work with, and my chefs are like, oh yeah, you show up on time and you're like, you do the work. And that's why we like you. And so it wasn't this whole, I guess, career path of following into where I'm doing. It wasn't probably until I was, when I was like 28, 29, it really hit me hard. Like, what do I want to do? You know, I graduated from college. I was thinking about going to grad school and all that stuff, but I was like, I don't want to go back to school. I just got out of school, you know? But then I think, yeah, it was just this, what do I want to do? Like, what kind of meaning do you want to give? Like, I just think like, what kind of meaning do you want to get your life? Like, you know, 30, 40 years from now, I'm looking back. So it got me, a lot of things changed me a little bit. And so it got me thinking about like, hey, what is this, you know?
Yeah. So what I'm hearing and what I heard just now as you were explaining really quick was that mom and dad, right, were the first, they trained you.
Oh, heck yeah.
Like, saying, like, you know, going to like, for example, like dad training you how to cook and showing you the way, like in the whole process and method. Like, for example, I would imagine that you're probably learning about temperature, what's considered cooked meat, right? And then, for example, like butchering, like cutting the meats and things like that. So mom and dad sounds like were the first early role models, or again, probably chefs who taught you right there and then how to be a chef and operate in the kitchen, right, at the slaughterhouse or whatever it may be. Yeah.
So by the time I tell people, by the time I was, by the time I was in high school, I was more comfortable holding like I was more comfortable holding a knife, like cutting through meat and using a choki, tokotsa, and you know, and yingai, like grilling and all that. I was more comfortable doing that than holding a basketball. You know, like I couldn't shoot a basketball. Like I couldn't do that. Like I didn't really know how. I wasn't really good at it. But like if you gave me itumbuana and just says, hey, like break it down. I'm like, okay, yeah, dad taught me how to do this, you know?
That's really cool. I think people often take for granted about that experience early on. Like, why does our parents keep showing us how to, like, even for the women's side, I would say, like, for example, how to pluck a chicken, right? Or how to clean, you know, the animals that, you know, we're going to be consuming, like the food preparations and all that stuff, and realizing like that's a skill set. What I'm hearing is that you built and developed over time and learned and helped you how to be comfortable, you know, with what you're using, from like the pestle motor to, you know, a knife operating around the kitchen. I would imagine that even knowing, for example, all those body parts and things like that of the animal that you're breaking down, cooking it. So that's really cool.
And you know what I would say too is what really changed the way that I viewed cooking was, I worked at these kind of fancy restaurant, and there's this really fancy restaurant I worked at, and it was like super cool. It was fun. You know, I learned a lot and the chefs were awesome there, but I just saw all these people coming in to eat, and they were just like super rich people. And so there was these three women that came, and they were eating at the chef's table area, and they were really sweet, you know, like older women, you know, that they were eating and they were having a great time. You know, they just went all out. And I saw their bill, like the server went to the POS machine and was checking them out, and I saw their bill, and between three of them, it was almost $600 they spent. And I mean, again, like there's a pretty fancy restaurant, right? And so I thought to myself, man, my mom and my dad would never come here, you know, or like my friends I love and care about, I would never get to cook for them. And that's when it started changing inside of me. And I was like, I felt like I love what I was doing, but I felt like they had no purpose. They had no meaning to me. And what brought me back was going and eating at my mom and dad's table and going in their house and eating at their house and eating the 应该不做肉做you know 做 mustard green and eating that stuff, it revived my soul, and I'm like, this is what I want to do. Like, I want to tell their story. I want people to know their food, you know, and I firmly believe that every dish has a narrative, and you follow that narrative long enough and close enough, you get to the people behind the food, and once you're there, it's not about food, it's actually about people. And so that's Hmong. That's the Hmong way, isn't it? So people come to your house, what's the first thing you say? Oh, whole day. You give them a cup of water. What's the next thing? And it doesn't matter what you have or you don't have. Everybody sits at the table together. And then for me, it was that drive where it's like, how do we do this? Like, how do I show people who mom and dad really is, and the sacrifices and everything? And that gave me a different purpose. And it was no longer doing a career for myself. It was living a life telling their story because they first gave us life, you know?
I appreciate that so much. So here's a quick mini story. I remember growing up, right, when you go to school and everybody had lunches, right?
Yeah.
And if you didn't have the school lunch, for example, and when people brought their own lunches, they would have the sandwich. They'll have like, you know, the really cool, you know, like, for example, an apple or something like that, right?
Yeah, like applesauce, pudding.
The typical American type of food you would probably get, most children will probably have. And I remember my parents packing me, like, especially on those school field trips where you had to bring your own food. I remember my parents packing me like, obviously not American food. And I think I was like probably 4th grade or something like that. And I had like the little bao, the little the steam bun, the steam bun, because it was made of, you know, like, it had your starch food, you had your proteins, you know, all in one bite. And I remember being so embarrassed because it wasn't American food. It wasn't perceived as a food that as a child, I was perceiving like that is part of my cultural identity that I should share and be very proud of. I think growing up, we all had that experience at some point in time, realizing, well, the food I'm eating is probably different, but I didn't know how to tell the narrative, right, of that experience.
Because we're so young, we're kids.
Exactly what you're saying is that, oh, you know, this represents my community, my culture, and like, again, around the kitchen table, the rice, the, you know, the, like, I was like, did you know that there's an egg in there? You get your proteins, you get, you know, your little noodles in there. And so I remember that, and I thought that was so. And nowadays, obviously, I mean,
and now it's cool and sexy, right?
I'm like, I'm like, oh my gosh, steamed buns and baked buns. Oh my goodness, how exciting!
And then like all the white people want to be a part of that now. They're like, oh yeah, like kids, like white kids would tell me about, oh yeah, like I had this bao and it was awesome. I'm like, yeah, bro, I get it, you know, like. Yeah, I mean, I think that when we were young, it was just, when you're young kids, most young kids, they just want to be the same as, like, they don't want to be different. You want to be the same. And I think, I mean, I had that experience too, where, you know, we go on field trip and my mom would pack me mumbles and then you know, and you're like eating rice and you're kind of hiding, you know, and it was but it was their way of saying that this is what we want to provide for you. Because, you know, like, it was like that mentality. When you go to school, like, we want you to be fed. And being fed in our culture, Hmong culture, means we want to take care of you. This is how we love you. And at that time, I felt so guilty later on in life, feeling like I wanted to push that love away. And I was just like, that wasn't enough. Like I felt like I was saying that wasn't enough. And there's a part of it, Eva, that's like driving me to do this now. You know, because it's my way of saying, Mom, Dad, I'm really sorry. And I'm finding a way to redeem all those shameful moments and all those shameful things where, you know, like, oh, I didn't want my friends to come over because I didn't want them to know that my mom and dad couldn't speak English. And just but now it's like, I get to proclaim it. Like, you know, we talk about all the stuff, all the food we make comes from their table, and I get to talk about it. And it's so cool that we've been so blessed to be able on a national level, like, you know, with PBS, CNN, with National Geographic, being able to talk about that. And having people meeting mom, like these big producers, these national producers and filmmakers are like coming to my house and they're eating with my mom. And it's so funny to watch that, because I never thought that National Geographic would come and sit down and have my mom, you know, and that's what the guy was eating. He loved it.
Uh-huh.
You
And right, and
know?
we're thinking probably like, I eat this all the time in my childhood,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and almost like we have that mentality like, oh, you're mono, and it's like, yeah, you know, we want that Wagyu steak and blah blah blah. But it's like when there are these people from the outside that eat this food, there's like a soul element that you know really cares for their soul. And I find myself saying, hey, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. This is what excites me. This is what wakes me up every morning, you know. And this doesn't feel like a job. Because when people go, hey, we want to talk about your mom, we want to talk about what your purpose is and why you want to do what you want to do, I could say, hey, yeah, let's talk. Like, you know, you got a couple hours, let's do it.
That's so wonderful, and I love the great energy and passion, folks. If you're watching, again, share with us what was one childhood food that you ate at school that you experienced. You're like, oh, I wasn't ready to share with people, but mom and dad would send it to me when I was on my field trips or going to school. I'm curious to know what was your
Yeah.
item, whether it be egg grills, whether it be again the bao steam buns, you know, whatever it may be. I'm curious to know what did you eat growing up. Okay. Now so share with us a little bit more about what does it mean to be, you know, a chef? Like, what are your main responsibilities?
Yeah. So I think a lot of people, they think that chef is all you do is cook, you know, but I don't see it as that. Our COO, our you know, chief operating officer, chief officer operating, COO, he always talks about how the chef, as a chef, you wear 3 hats. You have the food element, you know, you have the training, like, you know, training the people under you, and then there's the vision. So it's, you know, and so it's like you're the visionary, like it's your vision, it's kind of, you know, your story you want to tell, but then it's also you do it through the food, and then after the food, it's like how do you train people, how do you create systems within the restaurant that you can add people in. So I think that's really important, because I think sometimes people think chef like, oh yeah, all they do is they sit in there and they cook. It's very beautiful. It's like everybody's seen the Netflix chef's table and they think that's all we do is we sit there and we slowly drizzle things on. It's like, it's nothing like that at all. You know, and it's a, you know, whatever, I call it like a 33.33% split between those 3 areas. And so I find myself doing those 3 areas a lot. There are times where I do less cooking and more vision and more training. There are times I do more training, and, you know, so it fluctuates through that. So, and I also think too that it's very important. I learned really early in life, I learned early in this career path I'm on, that a lot of chefs are 80% artist and like 20% business people. and that's why restaurants fail, because they're so art, like they live up here. They're so art, or like they're thinking about the art. It's like, oh yeah, I want to do this, the vision, and that all the money that is needed for a business fails. And so I've been learning how to be a 50-50 split in that way, you know, like the vision, the art, yes, but then there's a business aspect to it, to keeping it going.
Right. And thank you for sharing that. I think many people forget that, especially when you are a chef and you're trying to operate on your own versus a chef going to work for an established existing, restaurant already. And so that's really enlightening to help kind of see like that split, or you're saying that 50-50, how do you get there? Right. And it takes time. I would imagine that you're saying, like, you know, you learned early on. It's like, you know, there's a lot of chefs who are artists, and then how to make that split. So for us right now, help us understand what's a typical day like for you, or a week. You mentioned, you know, you're doing that split, right? It's the beginning of the week. How do you designate your time between all of that?
Yeah. So it's, every day is different for me. But I kind of have a system now. So Monday mornings from like 7:30, 8 o'clock to 1 o'clock is all computer for me. So it's emails, it's writing up, you know, different things. So I start my Monday with catching up on emails. If there's any other emails I need to send out to remind people, you know, right now we're very blessed to be able to be in the position where we are, where there are media inquiries and stuff like that. So we have a publicist who runs all that stuff for me. So it's, so my Monday mornings, I catch up with her, where she's like, hey, this person asked for this, or this radio station asked for you, so you want to come here, or this TV station wants you to do this. So we go through it together. I have an hour-long meeting with her, and it's like, you know, sometimes I'll be like, no, yes, no, like, you know, and kind of like strategically what we're trying to do. So I do that, and then I check in with my team that's cooking. It's like, hey, okay, so what, you guys need anything extra? Sometimes it's like they'll be like, hey, we're running low on pork, or we need something. Like, I'll go pick it up, So it's real simple. And then Mondays are like that. Tuesdays are all meetings mostly.
Oh, wow.
From 10 o'clock to probably 10 like 5, 6. It's all meetings. So I have two more partners with me. So we have our partners meeting. We go through a lot of things. Right now we're trying to build our own restaurant, Vinai, and then we're also running our own the other restaurant, Union Hmong Kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
And so we talk through that. So we have our Vinai meetings, and that's like meeting with our project manager, construction people,
mm-hmm.
all the people it takes to build a restaurant, our architect, and all that stuff. And so it's all meetings basically until 5. And then in between there, I have different meetings I'll put in. Every week we have different things that we need to do. Wednesday, I spent the day at the kitchen with the chefs, and then Thursday, I don't know. It's usually like I stack up a meeting. We also run a podcast, so every Tuesdays and Thursdays at 5 o'clock is when we record. So and then and then whatever the weekend holds, it's again more meetings, and then hop in the kitchen whenever I need to. Yeah.
So a lot of decision making, a lot of listening, and probably
you wear different hats.
Different hats. I see that you're saying like that visionary versus the artist, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think just to follow up really quick with that is, what's the difference between the Union Kitchen and Vinai? I don't think people understand. What's uniquely different here.
Yeah, so Union Hmong Kitchen started out probably like 5 years ago as a pop-up, which means that I had friends who had restaurants, and I say, hey, once a week, can I come and take over your restaurant on a Friday night when you're not using it? And they'd be like, cool. And that's what we did. And then we worked out of my truck, and then we would go to like farmers market, little stands, and we just like, Yingai, Mumblo, and fermented mustard greens, and we just do that. And so we did that. So we kept doing that. And then what we did was what's things called a residency, where there was a brewery that said, hey, we bought a food trailer, but we don't want to operate in it. Do you want to come and operate in it? So we operate. So we were doing Hmong food out of a food trailer for this brewery, which went really well. And then the pandemic hit, and then the brewery closed down because the pandemic hit. So we found another kitchen where we can operate out of. Mm-hmm. So right now we just do all takeout, and then we still do pop-ups around town. So we go to different breweries around town, and for example, every Sunday night we're at this brewery called Dangerous Man Brewery, and they sell their beer, and then we make kapong, kapia, kodi. Since it's so cold, we'll just make it there, and we make it all at our big kitchen, and then we just bring it there, and people come in and there's an order. So Union Hmong Kitchen, right? And then we also have takeout too at the kitchen we're at. So Union Hmong Kitchen is, let's just think of it as like, when we first came as Hmong people, we first came to America, we found a duplex, a rental duplex, and we're living in there, right? Just think about it that way. Okay. Vinai is the house that we're getting to build that we want. Mm-hmm. So Vinai, so Union Hmong Kitchen is more of like, it's like the focus, a lot of it is like, just like, they're almost like more bar food, but it's Hmong food, but it's like we have more of a artistic liberty in it. While Vinai is going to be more focused on menu items that are influenced by mom and dad. So Vinai, for example, Vinai, the reason why it's kind of right now, like we're going through some figuring out some regulation things, is we're building a wood fire grill inside the restaurant. So inside the restaurant, we'll have a grill that it's all wood fire, because that's how my dad taught me how to cook. Yeah. What I'm saying? Like every Hmong dad had that in the back of their yard, just wood fire. But we're building a really nice one inside. Right. And if you do that, it's more expensive, and there's just more regulations, because you're actually burning fire inside a building, So yeah.
I think that's fantastic. And I think that also reflects our culture. For example, people may not recognize and realize that, but back in, the traditional way of cooking.
Yeah, Laos and Thailand.
Yeah, Laos and Thailand, and even in China, most Hmong communities and family household would actually have wood burning fire inside of their home,
Yeah.
as part of the operating of the kitchen. And so I think that really reflects again about the culture and like how unique that is from any other restaurants out there. So that's pretty exciting. And now, oh my goodness, time goes by so fast. All right,
I'm so sorry. Yeah.
No, it's okay. It's just because time goes by so fast, and I love your passion, your energy, your enthusiasm. So thank you for sharing with that. I would say, you mentioned you went to college, right? Tell us a little bit more. What did you study? And do you feel like that? How does that knowledge, skills, and abilities there prepare you for this type of work?
Yeah, absolutely. So I graduated the degree in communications, so interpersonal communication, and I minored in PR and marketing. And so when you're cooking, there has to be a soul aspect to it. There has to be this something about like how you can cook food and really put your soul into it. People always talk about soul, like soul food, or and one of the things I've learned with Hmong food is we all, like as Hmong kids, we all grew up eating Hmong food, right? But like if you had a Mika friend, if you had a white friend who said, hey, like what's Hmong food? Like how do you explain that to them? And it's kind of hard, isn't it? You're like, well, like a lot of times people goes, well, it's like this, but it's not. It's like Thai food, but it's not. It's like Laotian food, but it's not. It's like Vietnamese, but it's not. And it's just like, it's like, you get confused. So what really helped me be able to communicate and translate what Hmong food really is was actually what I learned in college, like the skills I learned in college as an going through interpersonal comm classes, and also learned about marketing and PR. Oh. And so what I tell people is Hmong food isn't a type of food. It's a philosophy of food. It's a way of thinking about food. Hmong food has never been about produce and product, right? Because a lot of people will fight me on this. They'll be like, oh, well, it has to be made with this ingredient and that ingredient. It's like, no. Our parents made it with those ingredients because that's what the land provided for them, because that's what was around them. But you tell me that the Hmong people in Fresno and the Hmong people in Minnesota, they do their food a little different because of what the land provides. We only have a growing season of maybe 5 months. You guys have it 12 months out of the year. So you guys can grow a lot more different things than we can. When we grow a lot of root vegetables here. Because we need to, because then in the fall we can save the root vegetables, and it would get us through the winter, and so Hmong people have always been about what does the land provide, what can we learn from the cultures around us, gleaning from those cultures, and how do we take all of that to preserve our own culture, and then beyond that to build a platform so the younger generation can build on that culture, so then the next group builds on that. That's what Hmong food is. So people make fun of me sometimes, where they're like, or not make fun, trolls, you know what I'm talking about. Like they'll just be like, oh, like you're like they'll be like, oh, you're using a rutabaga. Like Hmong people don't eat that. Hmong people in Minnesota do. Because that's what our people have been about. It's about survival. So what I learned in college in my undergrad was how to tell stories, how to engage into people's souls, and how to talk to people. And I tell this to everybody, because everyone kind of made fun of like comm majors, like, oh, it's the easy, major. And I'm like, my buddies who are like pre-med, I'm like, dude, man, you went pre-med, I didn't, so like, don't make fun of me, But what I tell people with being a comm major was what we're really learning how to do is using language and meaning to communicate with people. And you and I both know that whatever job you have in life, it's all about communicating. You can be the smartest dude ever, but if you are a crappy communicator, nobody's going to know what you're trying to say. You can be and so I really, what we really get to do here is I get to take my mom and dad's stories, all the things they learn, I get to put it together, and then I tell people it's not my story. I'm a curator. I get to curate the story and tell others about it.
That's so fantastic. And I love how you made that leap of the skills, the knowledge, the abilities here, essentially, which was down to my other question was, again, how do you bring that to light into your job? And you just capture it in storytelling, storytelling through food, and it's the philosophy and the resources that the community, the culture utilize. And that's what the definition of, again, what Hmong food is. what is it? I remember I tell folks, oh, it's so weird. Like as I'm growing older, I'm starting to eat more and more like my
Yep,
parents. It was just so
exactly.
odd. I remember as a teenager, I was like, oh, it's like bitter melon
Burgers,
is
pizza,
awful.
yeah.
Like who would eat this? This is
Yep,
so bitter, you know? And so
yep,
like you must have no taste or something. Like you must have
yeah,
lost
yeah,
your taste buds or
yeah,
something. And
yeah.
it's so odd. Recently I started craving bitter melon. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm literally eating exactly like mom and dad. I
Yep,
would eat the vegetable, you know, we just boil the vegetables
yep.
on the side.
Well, listen, yep, boom.
And so I was like, you know, it's so crazy. And it's because like I can eat all the things in the world. Like you can eat like all the fancy stuff, all the
Yep,
restaurant stuff.
yep.
But at
hmm
the end, like you still crave. I would still feel full. I can go eat a sandwich, a Subway, for
Yep,
example.
yep,
And at the end, I'll still feel hungry unless I eat like a
yep.
Hmong related food and I will feel full
Exactly.
afterwards. And I really appreciate you highlighting that about it's like the philosophy and the way of being.
When tokunamana, I have to have a bowl of like broth with me, like grandma used to,
Yeah,
like my
but side
mom does.
broth, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, right. And so like I'm eating the rice in, and then I take the spoon and I put it in the broth and bring it over. Like I'm like, whoa, what the heck? You know, you know what I love is like toluma, the pumpkin whole na, or your
Yeah,
poor whole na.
pumpkin squash,
Yeah,
yeah.
the squash, yeah, whole na. In the summer, so my grandma from my grandma, my mom's mom passed away a few years ago. But in the summer, when I drink that and have that just a hint of sweetness, but that flavor of the squash, you know, and the pumpkin, when I drink that, I'm transported to being 10 years old, sitting right by grandma because she always had that right on the table, and she would bring all the food and she'd take the meat and pick it off the chicken and put it on my little plate. And you know, and I'm like that little kid, and I'm like reaching my arm out, I'm trying to get that. I'm transformed. I'm like a 10-year-old kid again, sitting by grandma, eating by her in the summer, you know? And so I really believe that food innates memories and innate stories. Like when I started talking about it, you talked about the steam bun, right? It brought you back to school, you know? And that's what we get to do every day when we talk to people about food, you know, or when we get to cook food for people. And so these stories are so sacred to me because they're my mom and dad's story. It's their legacy.
Yeah, that's so wonderful. And I really appreciate that too. I know folks are sharing a little bit more. Yes, ratatouille, right? That
Yeah.
moment of transporting into your childhood youth. Yes, absolutely. Okay, now tell us a little bit more about, you know, like for example, when you're going in and you're becoming a chef, you know, obviously you don't become the chef overnight. What type
Yep.
of roles were common for you to start off with
Mhm.
when you started getting this experience? Like for example, like did you have to be the cashier first? Did you have to like learn
No.
the whole restaurant, like
Yeah.
the whole restaurant roles?
Yeah. So this is what I tell people who, especially in the restaurant world, if you are interested in this, there's usually two routes. You just go work at a restaurant and you figure it out, or you can go to culinary school. I didn't go to culinary school. People, if you choose that route, absolutely. You know, like I didn't choose that route, so it's not my experience. But I have friends who have chosen that route and they learned a lot of things. Some people didn't like it, some people liked it, whatever. It depends on the person, right? So what I did was I literally started out as a dishwasher when I was 16, you know, and just wash dishes. And then one of the cooks is like, hey, could you peel those potatoes? I'm like, okay. And I went and peeled potatoes, you know, I'm like, oh, hey, can you chop those onions? Cool. Okay. You know? And so I started out as that and I grew. And again, like I said, it was the number one thing I tell people is this, especially if you're going to, like, for example, if I'm hiring you, you're working for me, especially for young people, I say, show up. That's all you got to do. Show up and want to learn. Every day, come in, show up, want to learn. And till today, I'm still learning. I dork out about stupid little things when it comes to food, you know? Like even like when I'm cooking at home, I'm like, oh, I have an idea. I'm going to try this, you know? And so just be an avid learner and be dependable. Because as like employers, we're looking for people that's dependable. Like I can teach you skills. Cooking is about repetitions, you know, how to hold a knife, how to cut and thinly, how to do it. The more repetitions you do, the more comfortable you are. So people always ask me like, oh, hey, how do you like cut so thin like that? I'm like, dude, I've done this cut like a billion times, you know? So it's repetition. So it's like muscle memory. It's like riding a bike. And I can teach you that. I can give you many reps. But if you're coming and you want to work, show up. Like I tell people, show up. Be eager to work. Be eager to learn. And I would say is be honest with your employer, you know, and just be like, hey, like I don't want to be here anymore. I don't feel like, I want to be here anymore. I want to go. That's awesome. Like we have people that have come and gone. It's awesome. We have people that stayed, we have this kid named Kenny. Kenny about a year ago came to us. Kenny, all his experience was he was a barista at a coffee shop. That's all he knew. And he came and worked in a food trailer with us. And Kenny's one of our best cooks now. Just every day he showed up every day. He had a great attitude. Okay, today am I washing dishes? I'm going to be the best dishwasher today. Oh, is today all I'm doing is peeling potatoes? Awesome. Kenny's a white dude with red hair and he makes sticky rice pretty good. Like he knows how to make sticky rice. He knows how to tokotsa. I mean, he's a white dude with red hair. He's like, and he's awesome. He knows how to he knows how to do all the Hmong food, and like when he does it, I bet you if he cooks and you didn't know that he was a white dude, you probably think a Hmong dude made the kotsa. You probably think a Hmong dude made the sticky rice. No, it's Kenny.
Yeah. And I think that speaks a lot. I think, especially when a lot of young people, if you think about it, right, some of the early years of experiences that many people have across the nation are restaurant experience, like working the cashier, working at, for example, McDonald's, Jack in the Box, right?
Yep.
All of those restaurant chains where they do employ like 16-year-olds at least typically is those early onset experiences essentially is how to navigate those rush hours, how to navigate procedures, health and safety, and going through that experience and seeing whether or not it works for you. And in your case, you're talking about like, just showing up, being willing to learn, right? Because you're saying we can teach you X, Y, and Z. We can teach you to get good and really good at it. I can hear. But really it's the discipline to be able to realize like, today you might be peeling potatoes, but guess what? After 1,000 peeling potatoes, you may potentially get good, right?
Yeah. And so I think, there's an artistry, there's a craft to it too, but eventually that comes. The thing is we get young people now that want to come in and be like, and they'll show me all their cool knives and they want to talk about some YouTube show they're starting and how they're going to go on TikTok and do this. And I'm like, bro, like if that's all you care about, then this is probably not the job for you. Like all of that stuff is less. So, I meet people sometimes and they're like, man, like you're, like you really inspire me. Like I want to have a TV show like you, because we host this TV show. And I was like, I want to, and this is passing by and I'm saying thank you and whatever. But what I really want to do with that kid is I want to sit him down. I'm like, bro, that's like 0.5% of what I do. Like you see me, on here in that show and that read about this, but like, that's really a small amount of what I do. But if you're willing to put in the work, like, well, let's start somewhere and we'll totally put the time into you. Our COO, I love him because he believes in that. He has growth plans for everybody in our job, in our company, in our restaurant. They have a growth plan and we meet with them and we set their growth plan. We don't set it. We have them set up their growth plan. And then we want to be like, hey, this is where you are. This is where you want to go. We're going to help you build the road to get you there. And that's what I love about what we get to do at our job.
No, that's amazing. I think that you speak very well right there about like the discipline, the career path and potential, right? If you put the work in. And what I've also heard right there, what you're saying is really about like for the youth, like understanding, distinguishing the difference between like, what's your passion, right? What do you actually enjoy? Is it the artistry? And I think what you're speaking about is get good at your craft first. Get good, get really good. Know your craft first. Before you go market, before you build the YouTube, before you become the TikTok starter.
Yeah, I'm not against any of that. Don't get me wrong. I'm not against any of that. But I don't think anyone's
against it. I just think that you're pointing out again, like for any artist out there, whether you're the chef or, the photographer or whatever it is, your competency, knowledge, like be really proficient and good at it first. And I think that's really important for people to realize that getting good doesn't happen overnight. It's going to take some grinding.
I think that a lot of people like the word life hack, right? They want to find a hack in life to say, how can I get from here to here the quickest route with the with the least amount of work? And I'm like, sometimes there isn't. Sometimes you just got to work. And I think everyone's always trying to find an angle to say, how do I get rich quick or how do I succeed fast? And it's like, some people do, and that's their story. Great. But they're the exception. Sometimes you just got to work hard. I remember being like, when we first started this and we started doing this, I remember being like up to my elbows in dirty dishes at 2 a.m. and just like, yeah, I just gotta wash it. Nobody's gonna wash this. I gotta do this. It's not sexy at all, you know? But it really, like, for me, what kept that drive wasn't me. It was thinking about mom and dad, man. Like, I was thinking about the things they had to do, like the amount of work they had to do, the sacrifices that they made, and they never complained to us, you know, to give us opportunities. So like for me, when, like I tell people, when I work and when we're building out the grill and we're cooking over the fire and my hands are all like sooty and hard, I love that feeling because that's how my dad's hands was, because he's a carpenter and his hand was always really rough. And I realized that when I look at my hands and I see that, I connect with my dad so much. Or like when I sit down after a long day, my body aches. Like that's how I connect with my father, knowing that he worked hard. And then I get to see a glimpse of that. And so I walk a little bit in his shoes. And that sounds weird, but that motivates me.
Yeah, no, that's inspiring. And I really appreciate that. I think that's so powerful to see, like, again, like that experience and seeing their experience and sort of just sharing that moment there. Okay. So, oh my goodness, time is going by so fast. All right. So really quick, what would you say that, you know, again, I think you alluded to it, like you like least about your work. You're like, oh, this dreads me, but I got to do it. What would you say is one thing that, you know, you're like, oh, this is the one thing that gets to me?
Well, again, I'm not a numbers person. So when it comes to all the numbers aspect of just growing a company, you know, and like having certain like, oh, hey, this is the model we're using for labor costs, or this is the model we're using for, you know, COGS or cost of goods or whatever, all that stuff. That kind of stuff, when we start talking about that as partners, I'm just like, but I need to know at least a little bit of it. Like I don't have to go deep diving like our CFO does, but like I need to know a little bit of it. And so that stuff is like the least amount. The other thing too is I like emails are as much as like, that's why I had to discipline myself to be like, Mondays are your email days. Like you send out all those emails, you respond, you ask questions. And then when they slowly trickled in, you're not backed up, you know? So I'm kind of OCD. Like I hate having my email inbox, like it says like unread messages. Like I'm super OCD about that. So literally like I will get that message at like midnight and I'm like, oh, you know? So I'm like, no, like I had to really like teach myself like, no, what I'm really going to do is I save it for Monday, you know? So it's my least thing. It's the thing I like the least, but I've learned to say that this is part of the job, you know?
It's really good. I think people navigate it. You know, everybody does a little different. And just understanding what your awareness is, and of course, it's developing a system that works for you. And you're saying like Mondays are the days where you get to tackle that.
Yep.
Wonderful, folks. If you're watching, what is one system that works for you? Right. Okay. Now, what do you like the most of your job? What do you like keeps you going? You're like, oh, this is like, my thing.
Like everything I've said, like. Dude, it's just about like for me, like cooking food that's awesome. You know, like I used to get real excited when we would like build fires to cook over big grills, or if we had like a big old side of we want to like eat like a whole pig and roasting it. Like I used to get so excited about stuff like that, or just putting on big events. I love putting on big, like we get so excited. But honestly, like that stuff is nothing compared to, and I've said this so many times, is just being able to meet people and then they come in and they eat food and then they say, hey, like tell us about this, and then I get to talk about mom and dad. Like that's like the funnest things for me. And then when you do that, it's so interesting because it doesn't matter Hmong, Mika, whoever, when I start talking about that, does something hits inside of people when they go, oh, like let me tell you about my grandmother, let me tell you about my mother, like she might have passed, but this is the legacy she left for me. And so we get you what you do is you get to connect to their humanity, you know, and it might have started with some sticky rice and Hmong sausage, you know, that we made, and then it's conversation, you know. So
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I'm just saying like that's what I love doing. Like that's why I love doing these, you know, these like, you know, podcasts, these shows, because we just get to talk about mom and dad some more too.
Yeah, and I think that's really unique. Is like when you're saying about food, is like, you know, it's creating memories. You're creating new memories, right? Reminiscing
Absolutely.
about some old memories, sharing and being at the table and just sharing about what you enjoy, like your flavors and your favorite profile of food, right? And then essentially you're creating new memories with these new people, like you're saying, like whether it be, someone from a different culture, experience, never had it, or maybe heard of it,
Yeah.
saw it from a magazine, right? And essentially introducing them to the culture. And again, in this case, mom and dad.
Yep.
Wonderful. Now, and I know that you talked about earlier about like, was there any additional like training you took on once you knew that, okay, this is going to be the path for me. I want to become a chef. Did you take on any additional training? I know you mentioned like going to the university, studying communications, right?
Yeah. So that was my original job. What I wanted to do when I got out of college was I wanted to work for nonprofit groups doing, in that sector. But I didn't, like I was just like, oh, like that's way too much like grad school. Like, I don't know, and I just don't like bureaucracy. Like I don't deal well with that. Like it's like, oh, well, this is, and all like the politics of stuff. I just don't deal. I'm just like, I'm kind of like my dad. Like I'm just like, this kind of stuff's all BS. Like let's just get work done. I would say the training and the background stuff that I learned like while I'm, working, as a cook, growing our company is looking like meeting with different entrepreneurs or business owners that aren't in my field and finding these common principles that we deal with, that we work with, and so it's super cool. So like I hang out with buddies who are chefs too, that we get to talk and we talk shop. But then when I meet people who are like not in my field, but we find that we have these principles or these things that we are working on that they kind of overlap each other. Like, oh wow, like you deal with that, I deal with that too. But I might be from the food world, talk about distribution or whatever, and we talk about, oh yeah, here are the vendors we use. When we're doing that, it's so cool to see how they creatively solve problems that I probably wouldn't think of. Because I solve problems like a cook. That's what I do, and a lot of times that's like with duct tape, but some of these guys, like they're talking, like that's why I'm really been learning a lot about systems, like how to run an efficient company while building a good system, and it's plug and play, like that everybody who comes in and works for us, they have a personality, they have, they have a heart, they're different people, but there's a system that we can put them in, and then we can teach them in that system, so that's very important than just having people come in and be like, well, you're here, go cook over there. No, like we have to prepare them. If you're a business owner and your employees fail, or they don't get something, I think a lot of that responsibility falls on your shoulder, because it's about you creating a work atmosphere that can help them and teach them. And so those are the things I had to learn. Communication, like there's 3 of us owners. So communication, learning how to make decisions together. I think that's very important, because like I used to do this by myself. So I'd be like, all right, whatever. Like I have a meeting in my own head, like we're going to do that. Okay. But then we have to think about, financial ramifications. We have to think about regulations. We have to think about law. With COVID, especially now, we have to think about health procedures and stuff like that. Again, making decisions with 3 people. I think that, but the 3 of us gel pretty well. Like, the 3 of us, we gel pretty well and we work well together. But again, just learning how to work with people. These are trainings that, even us having an independent company coming in to teach us how to, we jokingly call it, it's like marriage counseling for business owners. That's what it is, where it's like, yeah. So getting all that kind of training, and that there's a cost to that, there's money, is a financial cost to all that, but you need it,
And I'm wondering here, as you're saying it too, is that, going through that experience and hearing from people is essentially that's, you're learning as you go, as you're figuring how to problem solve, and your leadership approach. And essentially, that's what I heard the whole time you were saying is this is your leadership approach as, an owner, and you're thinking business, you're thinking the whole spectrum from start to finish. How do we prepare people? How do we launch? How do we do all that stuff, including, and I'm wondering here is, because of COVID particularly, do you feel like it has halt and stopped your launch? Or it has, put you in a detour and like a redirection a little bit? What did you learn in 2020 that is preparing you for 2021?
Yeah, I mean, it's what my dad always said to us as, growing up. He always says that, no matter what the problem is, you work the problem and you move forward. Just work the problem and move forward. And I really respect what he said there, what he has taught me, to work the problem, never give up, work the problem. And so we had to do that. I mean, we're still doing that. Like, we're still figuring this stuff out right now. You know, we were supposed to be done building this restaurant in November, December. That was the original projection date. But now we got bumped back to spring, and it got bumped back to summer, and it was just like, but again, work the problem. Issues came up, right? You know, trying to run a restaurant while building a restaurant, it's really hard to balance that at times, you know. And so we're finding out that things don't happen the way that you want it to happen, but there's always this silver lining to it, and that I'm learning a lot. Like, hey, maybe I wasn't ready yet for that. You know, like all the stuff that I've been talking to you about, like a lot of it have come from adversity, going through adversity through the last year.
Yeah.
You know,
and I know that a lot of people were hit like significantly across the nation with the restaurant closing. And then I think even out here in California, it was sort of a mix. We would open, the restaurants will open and then close and then open and close. We
did the same thing.
Yeah. It was like this roller coaster that, you know, everybody, whether you're at the customers or it sounds like also the business owners was going through, we were going some highs, we we're getting excited, and then we do a drop dramatically. And so it's just been sort of that tough kind of grind. Like I was telling folks, I can't wait until this whole pandemic's over, because I'm going to go back to all my local restaurants and go to the food. And then, because I miss, like you're saying, those memories, I miss the flavor, I miss the food, and how much, like, you can still order takeout, don't get me wrong. But there's the ambiance of being in a restaurant, you know? And I really do miss and enjoy, like, for example, a lot of the local mom and pop shops where you get to see how they're doing. You get to say, they know your, like, for example, your logo, they're your logo. So like they know your orders, right? And how valuable you are to be able to participate in their, like, you know, their home culture food that they're sharing with the community. And I think that's so fantastic. I know that our time is wrapping. Oh my goodness. Yeah, there's just not enough time. And I really appreciate your energy. And I value the work that you're doing. I think that it's so phenomenal, and it's so exciting. And I am rooting for Vinai to open. I too was also born in the camp of Vinai, which I think
that's awesome. Yeah.
And so when I saw that you're naming it Vinai, which I'm like, yeah, hello, of course. I didn't have like memories growing up because I was only a baby, but I think that, you know, it just speaks volume, and I can't wait to travel when everything's ready to go. I'm gonna definitely your shop and check out some of your food and really be able to, you know, again, bring those excitement and energy to the restaurant and to the food industry. Now, really quick, 2 questions really quick before you head off. What's your favorite food? What is your go-to? You're like, you know, like this is like that hits the spot no matter what. Any time of the year, no matter, this is the dish that hits the spot.
Well, okay, I'll say that my favorite thing that hits the spot anytime, and I'll eat it anytime, is my mom's foot goal, hands down.
Okay.
Like my mom's foot goal, and I will fight tooth and nail anybody else's foot goal against my mom's. Like she has her batter down perfectly. She has, like, I tried helping her once, and she like shooed me away because she's like, "You're doing it wrong." I'm like, "Oh, whatever." You know, I would say that. But you know, when it comes to like just daily eating, I go through stages. Like I'll be like, hey, I really want to learn how to, like, I really want to eat a good sandwich. So it's going to be all sandwiches this week, you know, or something. Or like, hey, if I'm doing this. So I go through these like stages or whatever, you know, and a lot of times like with cooks, like I think everyone thinks that cooks, like we eat great all the time. No, we just like munch on stuff, you know, and a lot of times it's late night eatings because you're done with work late. And so it's like a lot of Wendy's run, you know, because Wendy's open late, Taco Bell, you know, so yeah.
That's so good. I really appreciate it. Oh my goodness, foot goal is one of my struggle. I can't get the ratio right.
Really?
My sister does, yeah. And so I'm always like looking at it, watching back, going back into it, and I just can't get the ratio right. So the dough is always a little off.
Do you know what it is though? I watch my mom do it. So the first 3 to 4 you know, crepes that she makes, they're the sacrificial crepes. So she makes her batter. No joke. She makes her batter, and she doesn't put like, and then she'll put the first crepe on, and it'll mess up. And then she'll either add more water or add more flour.
Uh-huh.
And then she'll do it again, and then add more oil, and she'll do it by like the fourth or the fifth one, she gets it right.
Uh-huh.
You know, and I'm just like, Mom, why don't you just like measure it? She's like, no, it's the feel. It's the feel. So I've learned that the first three to four one are the ones that are the screw up ones that like she'll just toss out, and because then it's all about the heat too on the pan, getting that perfect heat on the pan.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I watch it, I'm like, oh, I get it.
And that's what I love about it is that, you know, like parents are teaching us, like, for example, like to be chemists in the food, in the like essentially you're learning temperature, like I was mentioning, or you're learning the ratio. All of a sudden you're doing science, right? But
Absolutely.
you don't have to put a numerical value. You're feeling for it, and that's something I value so much. Like even today, like I'm like making rice, and I'm still doing the same way my parents are. Like you wash the rice, you know, you measure the finger, you do all
the finger,
the finger measurement for the rice, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just so valuable. And I appreciate that so much about, again, like those tools that they taught us. Because I'm like, one day if, you know, for whatever reason, if there's no measuring cup, I would know how to measure rice. I would know like this is the amount of ratio, water per rice ratio that needs to happen or for rice to cook.
And it doesn't matter whose finger it is. Like I have like big sausage fingers, and my sister has tiny fingers, still works.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
That's the weird thing about that method.
Yes, absolutely. So, and then my other second question is, you know, after your favorite food, how would people learn more if they wanted to see the updates regarding your restaurants? How would they learn more to connect with you, to learn more about what's happening in your menu items, things like that? Where would they go?
Yeah. So we're all social media right now is kind of like your virtual storefront. So Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. So for Instagram, it's Union Hmong Kitchen or at Union Hmong Kitchen. Facebook's the same thing, at Union Hmong Kitchen. And then it's also Instagram and Facebook is the same, at Vinai MN, those handles. And then I have a Twitter one. It's like at Chef Yai Vang, you know, and stuff like that. So and then the website's the same thing, unionkitchen.com. VNIMN.com. You can go on the websites. You can go on the websites. You can go on all our social media handles and stuff, and then just follow it. Sounds weird, but like just follow us on there, and then you'll get all the updates of everything.
Absolutely, folks. I encourage you to just swing by, check them out, give them a follow, subscribe to their channel, so that way you can learn more from, again, whether it be new food menu items, or again, some current updates on when launch is ready to go, when you guys are open to ready to start serving folks, whether that be in the store or again, even for takeout orders, it sounds like. So again, thank you all so much. I know time goes by so fast, and I just really enjoyed our conversation. I value so much about the work you bring here and what you're doing to the community, and really bringing back this passion about like our Hmong food, the memories, the philosophy of it. And I just want to appreciate that, you know, the energy and time you spent here with us. Thank you so much, Chef Yai Vang. Appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much for having me on. Appreciate it.
No problem. All right, folks, if you are here, you heard from Chef Yia Vang right there. And again, if you want to learn more, check out his website. I want to also quickly highlight really quick, what is it? The Fast Track promotion is still happening. If folks are interested, you know, head on over to evillycompany.com and enroll. There's still wait list for an opportunity for a 4-week program where you can learn about how to accelerate your career path and get that promotion. It's a 4-week training program. I work with you one-on-one, and we dive down about what your challenges are and what the solutions will be. Another pinpoint I wanted to quickly share with folks is that Reimagine Your Career Summit. It's still happening this Saturday. If you there's a code right there. It's called Evilly Guest. If you use the code, you can sign up for the Reimagine Your Career Summit for free. It won't cost you anything. It's a series of fireside chats, networking opportunities, and roundtable discussions. So if you are interested in learning more or getting connected, you know, how to prepare and launch your career, whether it be during the pandemic and even after the pandemic, I highly recommend you participate in this. It's a great way to start thinking about what you're going to do in order to prepare to launch well. And then lastly, next next Wednesday, we have on episode 13 with Dr. David Tao, who's our plastic surgeon, who's going to share about his experience and his path and how he became a surgeon specifically in this area. So if you're interested, swing by next Wednesday, come back, and we'd love to hear more. And again, I appreciate everyone's energy and time so much. Thank you all. I really want to capture really quick some folks who came by. Someone from Facebook said, for Pollux at elementary school, I always told my mom to make those color sticky rice because I thought it was so cool. My classmates loved it. Oh, the purple sticky rice. Absolutely. I think Amy mentioned on a church bus, I had a cooler of rice. Dude opened and smelled it and then made disgust face, white rice. Needless to say, he ate bland food, and I don't go to that church anymore. And of course, hey, Andy. Welcome back. Appreciate that you stopping by. So hopefully, folks, if you're interested, swing by, the Career Summit, hang out with us, learn about a few from different speakers, a whole entire series, and I'll see you back next Wednesday with Dr. David Tao, who's going to share about his experience. So thank you all so much. And thank you, Chef Yai Vang, for joining us and sharing his experience. And we are so excited and rooting him on for his success as we learn more as his development is happening. All right, folks, that's a wrap, and we'll catch you next time. Besides that, happy Wednesday. Have a good one, everyone. Bye.